The morning birds, already familiar but still annoying, broke into a throaty melody outside the window. Their shrill, incessant trills cut into the fragile morning peace, each note piercing it like an unwelcome alarm. They seemed to mock my need for silence, their chirps forming a cacophony that tangled with my thoughts, increasing my irritation, and making me long for the elusive silence. The thoughts in my head barricade themselves against the gloom, and I think about running to the supermarket for duct tape to muffle their beaks, or asking Elodie to give me the easiest recipe for poultry stew. Morning is considered the most beautiful time of day by those who proudly call themselves larks. Well, they can live on their branches with their endless chatter, basking in their own glory while the rest of us put up with the noise. As for my feathered neighbors, their outrage remains unwelcome. In the mornings, I allow myself about 10 minutes of languid silence. In this precious stretch of time, I try to regain some semblance of peace before the chaos of the day begins. But usually that calm ends when my wife, Manon, begins to move. The first shrill ring of the alarm clock sounds, and I am forced to lift my mortal carcass from the bed. Parting with the warm and terribly cozy blanket feels like a cruel betrayal. Sometimes I marvel at the irony of my childhood dreams, at how I longed to grow up, believing that adults could do whatever they wanted. Instead, adulthood often feels like balancing on a tightrope of endless responsibility, bills to pay, deadlines to meet, and obligations that leave little room for spontaneity. The freedom I envisioned as a child has been replaced by the weight of choices and compromises, a constant trade-off between ambition and leisure. Growing up, it turns out, comes with its own set of cells, albeit gilded ones. Yes, anything goes, waking up before dawn, crawling to work and sitting there, fading away, spending hours socializing with other adult hostages like me, while pretending that this is the pinnacle of freedom. Today, however, I managed to get up just in time and indulge in the rare luxury of taking my time. The first thing I did was head to the coffee shop. Without my morning coffee, my brain threatens to completely shut down. And I don't care if it happens in the middle of my shift, especially under the watchful eye of an all-seeing supervisor. This cafe has become my sanctuary. I persistently visit it, refusing others for no particular reason, perhaps out of habit, perhaps out of tradition. As I approached the door, I found a sign reading firm, accompanied by countless apologies from the staff. Some part of me half seriously wondered if today would be the day the universe conspired to deny me my sacred morning ritual. Would there be a note blaming unforeseen circumstances, or perhaps a dramatic announcement that I was out of coffee beans? My overactive imagination was amused, picturing the barista fleeing in panic at the sight of angry regulars pounding on the glass. It was a small, ridiculous thought, but it made me smirk as I pushed open the door. But she wasn't there. Apparently the cafe worker was brazenly late. I opened the door and stepped into a room filled with a quiet bustle. The familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mixed with something sweet, perhaps a buttery croissant or a flaky pain au chocolate cooling on the counter. The richness of the smell hinted at a morning ritual that promised comfort and put me to sleep with the cozy warmth of the cafe. "Please come inside," came a voice. I froze in the doorway, my attention caught by a young woman in a rather interesting pose, bending over and picking something up off the floor. Her brown hair was scattered over her shoulders, partially covering her face, which was framed by a charming blush when she looked up. "I'm sorry," she muttered, and a charming blush flooded her cheeks. "And how can you keep a customer waiting?" I teased, a mocking tone coming through in my words. She blushed even more, awkwardly rubbing the hem of her apron. I found the scene amusing and stepped closer, reducing the space between us to half a meter. The cafe was unusually empty at this hour, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the coffee maker and the occasional clinking of dishes from the back room. It was an unusual moment, frozen between ordinariness and something intriguingly intimate. "Oh, don't you think," I asked, already in a softer tone, "that you should make it up to me?" The blush went from her face to her neck, and she looked up at me through her lashes, clearly aware of what was hitting her, but making no effort to resist. Her lips parted as if to respond, but there were no words, only a quiet sigh that hung in the air between us. That was my signal. I shortened the remaining distance between us, and my hands found themselves on her pants-clad thighs. The fabric was soft under my touch, and her breath hitched, and her blush turned crimson. What followed needed no further explanation. It was an exchange of energy, a silent understanding that persisted far beyond the moment itself. As I left the cafe with my coffee, the warmth of which was a pale echo of the heat, I thought that I had never felt so invigorated by a morning drink. The streets outside were already bustling, but they seemed quieter, as if the world had slowed down to accommodate my heightened senses. La vie indeed has its pleasant surprises, and today seemed to be just beginning to reveal its hidden charms.